Perfect.
All right, everybody, what's going on, man? How y'all doing? Welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk. Of course, this is a show we cover the SWAC inside and out. I'm your tour guide around the SWAC, Steve Wells, coming at you. And today it is time to talk about Week 11, man. We are almost finished with the regular season. This is basically the last week of full action. Well, we have next week is pretty solid, but this is one of the last weeks of the season, and things are starting to ramp up. The West Division, won't be wrapped up this week, but it could be put in a good position to be wrapped up, depending on the outcome of two games. So we're definitely going to talk about that. Our game of the week this week is Texas Southern at hosting Alcorn. That game is on Sunday, not Saturday. So y'all make sure y'all keep that in mind. But before we get into all of this, man, y'all make sure y'all hit those socials. Facebook is SWAC Talk, Instagram SWAC Talk, Twitter SWAC Talk 76. As you know, SWAC Smoke coming at you tomorrow, live 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. Sunday, Week 11 recap. Tuesday, our HBCU Top 10 and Point Spread show. And then next Wednesday is our Week 12 recap preview. And I'm trying to figure out when I'm going to put my basketball preview in there. It could be next Monday or it could be the Monday after that. I don't know yet, but it's going to be coming in the next couple of weeks. Basketball officially started last night. So, got a lot of action taking place, and we'll talk about everything when we get to our basketball show. But this is football, and thank you for everybody who's been a new subscriber these last couple of days. Thank y'all for rocking with us. Make sure y'all continue to hit that subscribe button and hit that like button while you're here, man. Got a lot of great stuff coming at you, and gonna continue to bring you great stuff, especially as the season goes on, and we get all these hot seats and all that kind of stuff going on. We're gonna get more stuff like that coming at you. So y'all keep rocking with us and hit that join button to become a member if you like to do that. If not, you can hit the Cash App $SWAC Talk. Anything will be appreciated. So thank y'all for rocking with us and continue to rock with us. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into this, man. Got 6 games on the schedule. Jackson State is the only team that's off. Florida A&M's playing a non-conference game. Everything else is conference action. Starting on Friday at 8 p.m. Central on ESPNU, Grambling is at Arkansas Pine Bluff. Pine Bluff, they've been a team. I thought at one point in the season that they might be a team that could sneak up on some people, but they have kind of regressed. And last week, I think they kind of bottomed out offensively. Passed for 1 yard against Prairie View, gave up 38 points. And we'll talk about the Golden Lions in a minute. Grambling's another team who kind of wasn't, they were at one point 2-0 in conference, and now they're 3-3 in conference, and at a crossroads. Basically are out of the race, depending on unless something crazy happens. So you go from starting the conference play, kind of at the front door to now, sitting in the back seat. It's tough. So Grambling comes into this game averaging 27.8 points per game. They're giving up 30 points per game. They average 149 yards on the ground, 4.4 yards per carry. They pass for 217 through the air per game, 13 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 366 yards of offense per game, 5.7 yards per play. The opponents average 191 on the ground, 4.7 yards per carry, 178 through the air for the opponents, 17 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. They have 371 yards of offense allowed, 5.6 yards per play. The Tigers convert 37% on third down and 60% on fourth down. The opponents 41% on third down and 56% on fourth down. They have 6 fumbles on the season to go with their 7 interceptions, giving them 13 turnovers. The opponents have 6 fumbles as well to go with their 11 turnovers to give them 17 takeaways. So they are +4, which is definitely a good thing. They have 18 sacks on the season. They've allowed 10. They're 31 of 37 in the red zone and 26 of 29 for the opponents. This offensive line has played pretty well. Last week they had a tough task against Bama State, and it went bad for them. But for the most part, the O line's been playing pretty solid. Chance Williams leads the team with 694 yards and 6 touchdowns, averaging 5.9 yards per carry. Floyd Chalk 470 yards, 4.9 yards per carry, and 7 touchdowns. Kid came a long way last season. He was a strong finish. He finished the season strong and didn't have any touchdowns. This season he has 7, so he's definitely getting in the end zone. He's more of the short yardage power type back. Chance Williams is more of the lightning to the thunder, and they make a good combo. They definitely make a good combo. Miles Crawley, 160 of 270, 1,922 yards, 13 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Only completing 59% of his passes. That's something that I would love to see increase in these last couple of games. Antonio Jones has 37 catches for 530 yards and 1 touchdown. Lyndon Rash, 32 catches, 356 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Defensively, Lewis Matthews leads the team with 84 tackles. Sunday Anderson leads with 11 tackles for loss and 4.5 sacks, also leads the defense. Trent Henry leads the defense with 3 interceptions. Cedric Anderson and Kevin Thomas both have 2. Jimmy Isles averages 40 yards per punt. Tanner Rinker is 7 of 12 on field goals with a longer 38. They have not attempted a field goal longer than 30 to 39 yards. So they kind of don't. I guess they don't really feel like he has the range for that. But you never know at this portion in the season. Joshua Johnson averages 23 yards per punt return on 4 returns, and Joshua Johnson also averages 24 yards per return on kick returns with a longer 77. They're facing a Pine Bluff team that, honestly, man, like I said, I don't know what to make heads or tails of this team. They are at one point they looked like they were gonna be maybe not a mediocre team, but not a bad team. But they are looking really, really rough. Honestly, once conference play started, they really kind of bottomed out. They've lost every conference game by double digits, and they have not looked good. And really, they haven't looked good probably since the Alabama A&M game. So they have really kind of struggled offensively. Defensively, they're having a tough time. They're averaging 13 points per game. They're giving up 32. They average 128 yards on the ground, 3.5 yards per carry, 150 through the air, 9 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 279 yards of total offense, 4.4 yards per play. Defensively, they allow 190 yards per game on the ground, 4.9 yards per carry. Through the air, 270 yards allowed passing, 20 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. They allow 460 yards of offense and 6.9 yards per play. They convert 28% on third down, 41% on fourth down. They allow 44% on third down, only 9% on fourth down, but the opponents have only gone for it 11 times on fourth down, so they really don't have to hit very many fourth downs against Pine Bluff. This team has 16 turnovers. They have 10 takeaways, giving them a -6 in the turnover margin. They have 18 sacks on the season, and they've allowed 34. I thought this O-line would be kind of one of the better units in the league. They were pretty solid last season, but they obviously have not played well this season. They're 13 of 23 in the red zone, 28 33 for the opponents. Individually, Jonas Davis leads the team with 343 yards, 5 yards per carry, and 1 touchdown. Passing, whose game is it this week? Jalen Macon leads the team with 61 completions, 92 attempts, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 634 yards. Chancellor Edwards, who has basically started the last 4 games, he's 48 of 83 for 360 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Micaiah Higgins is 29 of 63, 322 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So it's anybody's guess. And like I said, this team threw for 1 yard last week. So there's only one way to go, and that's up. Kenji Lewis has 26 receptions to lead the team for 351 yards and 2 touchdowns. Rico Dozier leads the defense with 108 tackles. Definitely one of the top linebackers in the league right now. He also has 6 tackles for loss. Khalil Arnold leads the team with 6.5 tackles for loss and 4 sacks to lead the team as well. Kyrie Williams has 2 interceptions to lead the defense. Special teams, they average 39 yards per punt. They're only 2 of 7 on field goals. Dean Sears has been struggling on field goals. They're only 2 field goals within 20 to 29 yards. Their long is 25 on the season. They're 0 for 4 from 30 to 39 yards and 0 for 1 from 40 plus. So they really struggle with the kick game, which is something that you see when teams are struggling. Jewel Fletcher averages 4.4 yards per punt return. The team only averages 2 yards per punt return, and Maurice Lloyd averages 23 yards per kickoff return with a longer 34. Donald Johnson averages 25 yards per return with a longer 58. So they have some guys that could make some things happen, but they haven't been able to have any success doing anything right now. And I think that's going to continue. I've been calling Pine Bluff the get right game for a lot of people, and I think they're going to stay that way. I think Grambling going to get right this week, and they'll win this game by a score of 38-10. Grambling will head into their bye week with a coming off of a victory on Friday. So um, Tigers should prevail in that one. Moving on to Saturday's games, Alabama A&M is at Bethune-Cookman. That's a 11 o'clock Central Time kick on HBCU Go, 12 Eastern. So make sure you up early for that one before you head to those 2 o'clock games. You can catch some of this one. The Bulldogs are a hit or miss team. They can score the ball well against certain teams. Other teams they struggle to move the ball, but they're averaging 31 points per game. They're giving up 27. They average 143 yards on the ground, 232 through the air, 17 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 376 yards of offense, 5.5 yards per play. The opponent's 122 yards on the ground, 217 through the air, 14 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 340 yards for the opponents per game, 5.4 yards per play. So as you can see, the numbers aren't that different from them and their opponents. Um, they benefited from a couple of D2 games early, but they also had FBS games, so kind of ways out there. They're converting 39% on third down, 36% on fourth down. The opponent's 34% on third down and 20% on fourth down. So the defense has played really well this season comparatively to previous years. They're getting better. The offense it has their moments too, and they can be explosive at times. They have 18 turnovers, and they've allowed and they have 17 takeaways, giving them a +1 in the turnover margin. They have 18 sacks. They've given up 16. They're 30 or 37 in the red zone. Opponents 29 or 39. They're led in rushing by Donovan Eaglin. He has 509 yards, 5 yards per carry, 5 touchdowns. Ryan Morrow, 393 yards, 5 yards per carry, 6 touchdowns on the season. Also, Xavier Langford, 290 on the ground, 5.4 yards per carry, and 5 touchdowns. Quincy Casey leads the passing attack. He's 86 of 144 for 1,149 yards, 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Xavier Langford is 80 of 142, so his numbers are very similar. 902 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. So their numbers are almost even. Cameron Young, 42 catches on the season, 411 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jacoby Hewitt has come on strong these last few games, 26 catches, 385 yards, 4 touchdowns. Keenan Hambrick, 24 catches, 377 and 2 touchdowns. Terrell Gardner, 25 catches, 330 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So they spread the ball around amongst 4 guys, man. They have 4 guys that they can count on to really make some plays, and they all have their strengths. Marvin Smith leads the defense with 52 tackles. Jordan Mitchell has 51. Zarion Hayes has 10.5 tackles for loss. He also leads the defense with 3.5 sacks. Jordan Mitchell has 3 sacks as well, 6.5 tackles for loss. Interceptions, Caleb Dawson and Imari Pate each have 3. Special teams unit, they average 40 yards per punt on the season. They're 5 of 8 on field goals with a long of 29. So they haven't really kicked a lot. They've kicked quite a few field goals, but they haven't kicked anything long. They haven't attempted a field goal for 30 to 39 yards on the season, and they're 0 for 2 from 40 plus. So they kind of have that. They kind of in that no man's land. They tend to go for it there and kick only when they get stopped in the red zone. Terrell Gardner averages 15 yards per punt return with a touchdown and a 69-yard return. Gardner also averages 224 yards on kickoff returns with a longer 57. So he's definitely a guy to watch out for in the return game. They're facing the Bethune-Cookman team who picked up their first conference win last week against Valley. Um, wasn't pretty, and no, I don't think anybody thought it would be, but they found a way to win. Valley actually outgained them in all aspects and really outplayed them other than turnovers and crucial situations where they couldn't convert. But Bethune-Cookman, they're averaging 18 points per game. They're giving up 27, which for a team that's 2-7 and 1-5 in conference, allowing 27 points per game as a defense is honestly not that bad. The defense is actually pretty solid. They do give up some yardage because they have to be on the field a lot. The offense averages 94 yards per game on the ground, 2.7 yards per carry, 144 through the air, 9 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. 239 yards per game offensively, 3.8 yards per play. The defense allows 171 on the ground, 4.5 yards per carry, 220 through the air, 7 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and 391 total offense, 5.9 yards per play allowed. The Wildcats are 27% on third down, 64% on fourth down. They're pretty aggressive on fourth down, so they're not scared to go for it. The opponent's 32% on third down, which is very good for a defense that on a struggling team. 32% conversion is actually really, really good. 61% on fourth down for the opponents. They have 16 turnovers on the season, and the opponents have 13. So they're plus 3 in the turnover margin, which is another good thing for a team that's struggling right now. They have 19 sacks on the season. They've allowed 13. They're 18 or 21 in the red zone, 26 or 35 for the opponents in the red zone. Individually, they're led by Jimmy Robinson on the ground. He has 345 yards and two touchdowns. This team, honestly, other than a 58-yard run by Tink Boyd, this team is not very explosive on the ground. Their longest run, other than that, is 28 yards. So they haven't really broken a lot, and that's why they average like 2.7 yards per carry because they don't really have any explosive runs. But Jimmy Robinson is a guy. If you can get him going, he can open up some things. He's a guy who can get stronger as he carries the ball, but it takes a lot of carries for him to get his yardage, which can hurt a team sometimes. Luke Sprague is 62 of 95 for 544 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Walter Simmons, 50 of 92, 387 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Talik Bethea, who's been starting the last couple games, he is 34 of 67, 331 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. So as you can see, all three of the guys who have played multiple snaps have thrown 2 interceptions. Sprague has 4 touchdowns out of the group, but they kind of struggle with the passing game a bit because injuries and consistency. Tink Boyd has been pretty solid for them. He has 25 catches for 289 yards and 2 touchdowns. Dakari Allen Johnson, 30 catches, 263 yards and 3 touchdowns. Davino Ellington has 21 catches, 194 yards and no touchdowns. Again, this is a team who they have a few 40 plus yard passes, but they haven't really hit a lot of big plays, honestly, this season in either facet of the offense. So that's something that you want to see them get better at as moving into next season is being more explosive on offense. De'Aris Thomas, 82 tackles to lead the defense. He also has 10 tackles for loss, along with Eddie Walls has 10 tackles for loss. Adrian Hall has 9. So they are a pretty solid defense when it comes to tackles for loss. They have 69 tackles for loss on the season. Walls leads the defense with 4 sacks, 3 for Hall and Cunningham. Each have 3. Amari Hill Robinson has 3 interceptions on the season. He's coming on strong the last few weeks. They average 39 yards per punt on the season, and they're 6 of 10 on field goals with a long of 45. So they have Cade Hector has a pretty solid leg. He's 2 for 3 from 40 to 49 yards, and he did attempt a 50-plus yarder. But they have had 2 kicks blocked, and they blocked 2 kicks. So they have blocked they blocked 2 field goals and 1 punt, and the opponents have blocked 2 field goals and 1 punt. So it's a mixed bag when it comes to special teams. Allen Johnson averages 4 yards per punt return. Their longest punt return on the season is 10 yards. Darnell Dees, who I still feel like is one of the best return guys in the league, hasn't really gotten loose this season. Does have a 61 yarder. He averages 22 yards per return. Allen Johnson averages 31 yards per return on 3 returns with a longer 45. So there are some guys there, and of course, like I said, a guy like Darnell Dees, he's a touchdown waiting to happen in the kick return game. But I like the Bulldogs in this one. I think their offense played really well at the beginning of the game against FAMU. Kind of tailed off late, but they'll be fine in this game. I think they win this game 31-12. Bethune-Cookman's defense is not gonna, they're not gonna make it easy for you. They definitely, are pretty aggressive on their front seven. But they can be exploited with big plays, and so that's what I think the Bulldogs will do. I think they hit a few big plays and win this game. Like I said, 31-12. That takes us to our next game, which is honestly a battle for second place in the West. Both teams still have hopes for the division. Prairie View a little bit bigger hopes than Southern, but right now I think the Panthers they're still trying to find that consistency. But if they win out and Alcorn drops a game, they can win the division. So they still have a lot in front of them. Southern needs help, but we'll talk about the Jaguars in a minute. But the Panthers offensively have been up and down all season. That's a theme for the league right this season. A lot of teams are up and down, and it just shows that teams aren't playing up to the level that they can this season. Panthers average 19 points per game. They give up 33. They're averaging 156 yards on the ground, which for a team that averaged over 200 last season, that's a big drop off. 3.9 yards per carry. Just haven't really had that big game on the ground this season. 4.6 yards per carry for the opponents, 149 yards for them per game. 192 through the air for the Panthers, 7 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. 349 total offense for the Panthers, 5.6 yards per play. The opponents average 248 through the air, 23 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and 397 total offense, 6.4 yards per play. Prairie View converts 36% on third down, 25 on fourth down. The opponents 39% on third down and 75% on fourth down. Opponents have only attempted 8 fourth downs, so they tend to not really go for it a lot against them, but they are very successful when they do. They've been pretty successful with keeping drives going. The opponents have the Panthers have 4 fumbles and 8 interceptions, giving them 12 turnovers, and they have 4 fumbles and 8 interceptions, giving them 12 takeaways. So they're even in the turnover margin. They have 13 sacks on the season. They've allowed 22, which again, for a unit that I thought the O-line would be a strength on this team this season, they've given up quite a few sacks. So that's something that's kind of a disappointment. 16 or 23 in the red zone. The opponent's 31-35. They're led by Amar Antoine. He has 403 yards on the season, 4.9 yards per carry with 2 touchdowns. Johnson, 316 yards, 4.5 yards per carry, 1 touchdown. Brooks, 238, 5.7 yards per carry. Trezon Connolly hasn't really had a great running season this year. That's something, but he's still a threat. So you definitely want to account for him in the run game. He's 112 or 202 passing this season, 7 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 1,679 yards. Only completed 55% of his passes. Trajan Spiller has 21 catches for 366 yards and 5 touchdowns. Brian Jenkins, 17 for 340. He averages 20 yards per catch. Shamar Savage has 16 catches for 328 yards. He averages also 20 yards per catch and 1 touchdown. And Jaquan Bloomfield has 10 catches for 228 yards and 1 touchdown, 22 yards per catch. So they don't complete a lot of passes, but they love the deep ball. They have 3 guys. They have 3 guys averaging over 20 yards per catch. So they love the deep ball when they do go up top. Keyshawn Johnson leads the defense with 59 tackles. Derek Ray has 7 tackles for loss. Jamal Marshall has 6.5. Marshall leads the defense with 3 sacks. Ray has 2, along with Presley and Farrell. They each have 2 apiece as well. and DeJuan Lewis leads the defense with 2 interceptions. They average 37 yards per punt on the season, and they are 9 of 14 on field goals with a long of 50. So they have Guillermo Garcia Rodriguez has a 50-yard field goal, and Villa Gomez has made a 41 yarder. So they have two guys who can kick from distance, and that's something you definitely want to. That's a weapon for an offense that hasn't really been that consistent. Brian Jenkins averages 3.3 yards per punt return. The team averages 4.6. The longest return on the season is 16. Jenkins also averages 24 yards on punt returns with a long of 43. Uh, Marquise Dossett has a 55 yarder on the season, but the Panthers haven't really. They like I said, they just have been a team that's kind of been up and down and really inconsistent this season. But they're still a dangerous team, and as you see with them sitting in the position that they're in, they can, with some things happening, they could find themselves in a good position. But it's going to take a lot of work from them and a lot of help from other teams. Southern is another team that's the image of inconsistency. This offense has yet to play a good game. The defense has kind of been rough the last couple of weeks. This team is turnover plagued and penalty plagued, and they can run the ball sometimes. Sometimes they can pass it. Sometimes they look like they don't know what's going on out there. And the defense has had to carry the weight the last few weeks, and I think it's really wearing on this defense. But offensively, they average 23 points per game. The defense gives up 19. They average 115 per game on the ground, 3.5 yards per carry, 213 through the air, 12 touchdowns and 12 interceptions, 328 yards of offense per game, 5.4 yards per play. Defensively, they give up 120 on the ground, 3.2 yards per carry, 199 through the air, 12 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, 319 yards per game for the opponents, 4.6 yards per play. Southern's converting 33% on third down and 45% on fourth down. So sustaining drives is Southern's weakness. If you want to beat Southern, you make them drive the field. They can hit the big play because they have had quite a few big plays, but if you make them march down the field, they're either going to turn it over or they're not going to convert a third down or fourth down. So you really can find yourself in a good position if you can make Southern drive the ball. The opponents convert 38% on third down and 40% on fourth down. Southern's third down problems really come on penalties. They give up some big completions on third down at times and a couple of big runs at times on third down, but really it's penalties that extend drives that really hurts this defense. Southern has 22 turnovers and the opponents have 18, so they're -4, which is another reason why this team is struggling. They really have had problems with interceptions and fumbles, and the defense has done a pretty solid job of forcing turnovers. But when you turn over the ball 22 times, it's hard as a defense to force equal amount of turnovers to kind of keep you in games. The defense has 21 sacks. The offense has allowed 33. The O-line has really been up and down all season. They haven't really blocked well. They have had some injuries, but they haven't really protected the quarterback well. The quarterback has taken some unnecessary sacks as well. It's just been it's been a struggle for Southern. They're 17 of 23 in the red zone. The opponent's 18 of 25. Kendrick Grimes leads the team with 487 yards and 6 touchdowns. He averages 6 yards per carry. Garrett Qualls, 389 on the ground, 4.2 yards per carry with 3 touchdowns. Harold Blood, 134 of 238, 1,840 yards, 12 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Like I said, he's just a guy who, he's having his struggles. He hasn't really had a good game. He's had some games where he's thrown for good yardage, but the last few weeks, his numbers have been down. He can hit big plays. He has a 98-yard pass. He has like a 72-yard pass and a couple 50-yard passes. So they can hit the big play, but consistently driving the ball has been the problem for this team. Chandler Whitfield leads the team with 14 catches for 239 yards and 2 touchdowns. August Pete, 9 for 209 and 3 touchdowns. Jalen Howard, 14 for 180. Cassius Allen, 11 for 176. Kendrick Grimes leads the entire offense with 22 catches as a running back with 176 yards. George Qualls has 15 catches, 172 yards. So they do spread the ball around. They don't really have a guy, but they do have guys that are capable if the passing attack can ever get going. Derek Williams leads the defense with 57 tackles. Jalen Campbell 55. Kelby Givens has 14 tackles for loss. Taj Brown 10. Givens has 6 sacks. Brown has 4. Carter leads the defense with 3 interceptions. Special teams is where Southern, especially in the kicking game, is where Southern is very strong. Robins Beauplan, Mr. Goldenfoot himself, averages 43 yards per punt. Josh Griffin has 7 of 10 on field goals with a longer 54. He has had 1 block, but he's been pretty solid. Pretty solid on field goals. Ironically, the closer he gets, the more his misses are in close range. He's 1 or 2 from 20 to 29 yards and 0 for 1 from 30 to 39 yards. 3 or 3 from 40 to 49 yards, and like I said, that 54 yarder. So he has a strong leg. Sometimes the accuracy isn't always there, but he's definitely a weapon for Southern. The punt game and kick game are solid for Southern and have been all season. Whitfield averages 19 yards per punt return with a longer 43. Jalen Howard leads the team with 23 yards on kick return per return with 1 touchdown and a longer 90. They've been close to breaking multiple returns, but they haven't really gotten a lot of it. But the return game is definitely a possibility to be a weapon for Southern. But I don't know what this team is, and this team is hard to predict because they haven't played well all season as a team. The defense has played some really good games. The offense hasn't really chipped in like they should, and coming off of a loss like they did last week against Alcorn, you got to wonder what this team is with their psyche, knowing that they need to win all their games and they need Alcorn to lose all their games. You don't want to. That's something that you never want to have happen, and now they're in that position. So can they finish strong? That's the question for Southern, probably more than anything else. Can they finish strong and just finish with a winning record? Which a couple weeks ago that would not have been the case. Looking at finishing your season with a winning record and not winning the division. So can Southern play? Can they play well? I'm sure they can, but will they? It's tough. I can't predict that for them. So I think Prairie wins this game by a score 24-17. It's not going to be pretty. None of Southern games are pretty, win or loss. So this is not going to be pretty. But I think the Panthers get this win. And like I said, this is a 2:00 kickoff on Saturday. So make sure y'all check that out. Our next game is Alabama State going to Valley. This is the last SWAC game on Saturday. Also a 2 p.m. kick. Alabama State really looking like they could finish with an 8-3 record. They have 3 games left on the schedule. If they win out, they finish 8-3 and finish 6-2 in conference, which would get them a second place finish. This is a team who some people thought might finish 4th, maybe 3rd, but they're even with their offensive problems, their defense has been so consistent and so good that they have been able to overcome that. The offense averages 19 points a game. The defense allows 65. They run for 122 per game, 3.6 yards per carry. They pass for 171 yards per game, 9 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 293 total offense, 5.1 yards per play. Defensively, they allow 94 yards on the ground per game, 215 through the air, 9 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 309 yards offense for the opponents per game, 4.8 yards per play. They convert 33% on 3rd down, 37 on 4th down. The opponents 31 on 3rd down and 76 on 4th down. They have 14 turnovers. The opponents have 16 turnovers, so they're +2 in the turnover margin. They have 20 sacks as a defense. The O-line has only allowed 9 sacks, so even with the struggles that this offense has, they've protected the quarterback pretty well, which a lot of thoughts about Bama State offensive line this season. Would they be good at all? But they've been pretty solid, only allowing 9 sacks on the season. They're 18 of 26 in the red zone, 15 of 21 in the red zone for the opponents. They're led on the ground by Juwan Howell, He has 342 yards on the season, 4.2 yards per carry, and 1 touchdown. Marcus Harris, 248 yards on the ground, 3.9 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns. Demetrius Davis, 204 yards on the ground, 4.6 yards per carry. Damon Stewart is 78 of 124, passing 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 945 yards. Demetrius Davis, 42 of 61, 413 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Everybody knows who the guy to go to is in the air, and that's Keyshawn Johnson. He has 46 catches for 617 yards and 6 touchdowns. Isaiah Scott's the only other guy with double-digit catches. He has 15 catches, 197 yards, and 1 touchdown. He's also the only other guy on the team with more than 100 yards receiving. So you know where the ball is going. They know where the ball is going, but Keyshawn Johnson still comes down with it, and that's a weapon. When everybody in the stadium knows where the ball's going and it still gets there and he still makes plays, that's a special guy. That's a first team all conference guy. That's a really, really great guy. And they feed him a lot and he eats well. Bubba Adams, 92 tackles on the season to lead the defense. He also leads the defense with 10.5 tackles for loss. Traquan Thomas has 6 sacks to lead the defense, and Amon Scarborough has 2 interceptions to lead the defense. The special teams unit has been up and down. They average 36 yards per punt. They are 7 of 14 on field goals with a longer 34. They haven't really kicked a lot of long field goals, but they've really been up and down with the kick game. They have blocked 3 field goals this season, so the special teams unit is solid in that respect. Robert McMahon, one of the best punt returners in the league, he averages 15 yards per return with a longer 48 and 1 touchdown. Eric Horn has 19-yard average on 6 kick returns with a longer 59 to lead the team. Valley probably played one of the better games of the season this week on Thursday against Bethune-Cookman, but just came up, couldn't really convert anything. Kind of had a rough go of it in terms of turnovers and penalties, which cost them some drives and some points. But they played pretty well in that game. Just couldn't put points on the board. Defensively, they played pretty solidly. But this is a different task for them. They average 12 points per game. The opponents average 27. They have 101 yards per game on the ground, 2.8 yards per carry. And they pass for 160 yards per game, 6 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 261 yards of offense per game, 4 yards per play. The opponents average 170 on the ground per game, 5.4 yards per play. The opponents 222 through the air. They have 18 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, 392 yards per game for the opponents, 6.4 yards per play. Valley converts 27% on third down and 50% on fourth down. The opponent's 37% on third down and 35% on fourth down. Valley's fumbled the ball 5 times to go with the 8 interceptions, giving them 13 turnovers. The opponent's 5 interceptions and 7 fumbles, giving them 12 turnovers. They're -1 in the turnover margin. They have 6 sacks as a defense. They've given up 38. They've really, really struggled to protect the quarterback, and that's something that you see from these teams with first-year coaches. These teams that are really at the bottom, they've really struggled to protect the quarterback, giving up 38 sacks. They are 12 of 20 in the red zone. Opponents 30 of 40. They are led by Jared Wilson on the ground with 380 yards and 3 touchdowns. He averages 3.6 yards per carry. The Fabian Fant is a guy who can break a big play almost at any time. He averages 9.7 yards per carry with 2 touchdowns, 261 yards, longer 53. And Jacoby Thomas averages 4.9 yards per carry and 153 yards on the season. They've been back and forth with quarterbacks. Last week, Jaden Sisk got the start. He's 12 and 19 on the season with 184 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Tajarian Williams is 101 of 163, 932 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Also, Dino Maldonado is 23 of 44, one touchdown, two interceptions, 141 yards, and Jamari Jones, 19 of 37, 131 yards, one touchdown, no interceptions. Jackson Davis leads the team with 29 catches for 296 yards and two touchdowns. Carrick Ross, 26 for 229 and two touchdowns. Also, Kobe Bates, 19 for 202 on the season. And Malik Antoine, 15 for 159. Kobe Chambers, 14, 125. Rashad Eady's 10 for 120. So they have also Malik Myers has 12 catches for 99 yards. So they have 7 guys with double digit catches, including 2 with more than 25 catches. So they don't really throw the ball down the field. They like to stretch you horizontally, but they do spread the ball around. They just haven't had a lot of success this season. They're led by Jaron Fox with 62 tackles on defense. Fox also leads the defense with 7.5 tackles for loss. And Ryan Quinney has 2.5 sacks to lead the defense. Fox and Alexander each have 2. Omar Emmons leads the defense with 2 interceptions. The Delta Devils average 34 yards per punt, and they are 4-12 on field goals with a longer 44. They've been erratic in the kick game all season. Bates averages 4.6 yards per punt return with a longer 10 yards. Ross averages 17 yards per per kickoff return with a longer 38. Bobby Shanklin averages 18 yards per kick return with a longer 48. Also, Kobe Bates, 17 yards per return with a longer 43. And Kobe Chambers has a 60-yard return. So they've had some opportunities to break one. They just haven't really done it. But that time could be coming at any minute. This game is Bama State's game. I mean, their defense is going to carry them through this game. The offense should be able to move the ball and score some points. So I like the Hornets to win this game by score 27-3 and continue their march to a strong finish of the season. So I think they can, win out these last few games if they play, if they continue to play at the level that they've played so far in the season. Our final game on Saturday is Lincoln at Florida A&M. This is a 5:00 Eastern kick on Rattlers Plus. I'm not gonna go too deep into this game because number one, FAMU should win this game going away. Lincoln, they're 0 on the season. They're 0-11. They're 0-11 on the season. They've really struggled obviously to score points. They scored 20 is the most that they scored. They only scored in double digits 3 times this season. Couple close losses. I mean, they lost to Kennesaw State 28-12 a couple weeks ago, and they lost to Southern Utah 35-6. But this is a team that they're all over the place. They travel, and they've come up short. But the couple guys to look out for are TJ Goodwin at quarterback and Otis Ware at running back. They have some guys who can make some things happen, but they shouldn't be any match for FAMU. The Rattlers offense should score a lot of points. They're averaging 31. The defense is only giving up 16, so that bodes well in a game like this. I look for the run game for FAMU to get going. I think they're going to run the ball extremely well in this game, and the passing game will be there. I think the special teams are going to get a touchdown in this game. The defense probably will score a touchdown in this game. When you got a defense that's only allowing 280 yards on the season per game, it's tough to move the ball. 91 yards on the ground for the opponents, so it's going to be tough for Lincoln to move the ball through the air or on the ground. So the Rattlers should be more than fine in this game. I look for, like I said, Jennings and Dean and Yant to have some good success. Musa should be fine passing the ball. Riley, Sharee, Gassett, Young, Dixon, all those guys should make some plays. And, of course, the defense led by Isaiah Major and Johnny Chaney and Anthony Dunn, who should eat against this offensive line, should be really strong. The secondary should make a lot of plays. And the special teams are going to, they should name their score in this game. So I like the Rattlers by a score of 56-6. I think they're gonna, get in and get out in this game and get ready for the Florida Classic next week, which is their final regular season game before they head to the SWAC championship. Our Sunday game, which would have been a Saturday game, but takes so that to move the game to Sunday because they have a soccer game, an MLS soccer game at that stadium on Saturday. So this game is moved to Sunday, 2 o'clock kick. Alcorn looks to complete their march to the East to the West Division with a victory over Texas Southern. TSU's been in a lot of tight games this season. I mean, they haven't really been blown out in conference play. They only lost by 10 to FAMU. They lost by 12 to Grambling. They lost to Jackson State by 2. They lost to Southern by 6. They lost to Prairie by 3. So they've been in all of their games. They just haven't been able to be successful and pick up a win in those games. Even the game they won against Bethune-Cookman was a 3-point win. So they played a lot of close games in conference. They just haven't really been able to get out of their own way, and they're kind of snake bit. So Alcorn coming in playing really well. They're 5-1 in conference. They're on top of the West Division by themselves. The offense has started to come around the last few weeks. The defense is playing a lot better as the season has gone on, and they're going to be a tough task for anybody to play against. The offense averages 23 points per game. The defense allows 19. They average 156 on the ground per game, 4.7 yards per carry, 201 through the air, 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, giving them a total offense number of 358 per game, 5.8 yards per play. The opponents average 128 on the ground, 3.8 yards per carry, 182 through the air, 9 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. This defense can turn you over. Like the Alcorn people say, this is the crackhead D. Everybody gets to the rock. They can turn you over. And I mean, they had 5 takeaways last week, so they can turn it over. They can score when they get the ball. They can make life rough for you on defense. Total offense 311 for the opponents, 5.1 yards per play. The Braves convert 37% on third down, 54 on fourth down, 33% on third down for the opponents, 75% on fourth down. Alcorn has 3 fumbles to go with their 6 interceptions, giving them 9 turnovers. The opponents, like I said, they have 14 interceptions and 8 fumbles, giving them 22 turnovers. They're plus 13. That's as good as it gets. If you want to know why this team is winning, they turn you over and they score when they turn you over. So that's a recipe for success. That's definitely a recipe for success. They have 26 sacks as a defense. They've only allowed 15, so they protect the quarterback and they get after the quarterback. This is a very good team. 23 or 28 in the red zone. The opponent's 22 or 28. They're led on the ground by Jarvion Howard, 662 yards, 5 touchdowns, averages 5.5 yards per carry. Jacorian Sewell, 5.9 yards per carry as well. 1 touchdown, 194 yards. Tyler Macon, 163 on the ground, 9.6 yards per carry, 1 touchdown. Nico Duffy, 157 yards on the season, 3.9 yards per carry, 1 touchdown. Aaron Allen has been playing well these last few weeks. He's 159 of 240 for 1,781 yards, 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Monterio Hunt, 34 catches, 507 yards, 2 touchdowns with a longer 54. Malik Rogers, 20 catches, 366 yards, 2 touchdowns, longer 49. Tavarius Griffin at tight end, which you haven't seen very many teams use the tight end other than Alcorn, Jackson State, and FAMU. And Texas Southern as well with Jaron Johnson. Other teams don't use tight ends. Alcorn does. 22 catches for the tight end, 265 yards and 4 touchdowns. Also, Akeem McNair and Jarvion Howard each have 19 catches. Tavares Allen has 14 catches, and Nico Duffy has 12. So they spread the ball around a lot, but they have big play guys who can really hurt you deep if you allow them to get behind you. Terrence Ellis has 77 tackles to lead the defense. Malachi Bailey is having a great season, 14.5 tackles for loss for him and 9 sacks. Both those numbers lead the defense. Robert McDaniel has 3 interceptions. Keenan Leachman, which is a guy who was the star of Saturday's game, he also has 3 interceptions. And he scored 2 touchdowns in Saturday's game. So he's definitely a game breaker. If he can if he can come close to that kind of performance every week, this defense would be really tough. The Braves average 35 yards per punt. Noah Kiani is 12 of 16 on field goals with a long of 42. He has had one block on the season. They've also had a punt block. They average 3.5 yards per punt return. Don't really have a lot of success returning punts. Only 2.5 yards per return as a team. Akeem McNair averages 18 yards per kickoff return. He has a long of 43, which is the longest return on the season for the team. Nico Duffy averages 15 yards per return with a long of 22. Texas Southern, like I said, this team has had their problems, man. They've been able to be successful moving the football. The defense has played better in the last few weeks, but they just can't get over the hump. They've played a lot of close games, but just can't get over the hump. They average 23 yards per game. They give up 35. They average 195 yards per game, which they've run the ball really, really well the last couple of weeks. Really, the last 3 weeks, they've really ran the ball extremely well. They average 5.5 yards per carry. They average 172 yards through the air, 13 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 363 yards per game, 5.9 yards per play. The opponent's 187 yards on the ground per game, 4.2 yards per carry, 198 through the air, 17 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 385 yards per game. Total offense for the opponents, 5.3 yards per play. They convert 36% on third down, 44% on fourth down. The opponent's 45% on third down and 65% on fourth down. So they've kind of struggled at times with getting off the field as a defense. But like I said, the last few weeks they've been playing better on both sides of the ball. So eventually it has to come through for them in the last few weeks. So you want to kind of see them take that step and get past that hurdle that's held them back. They have 6 fumbles on the season to go with 8 interceptions, giving them 14 turnovers. The opponents have 4 interceptions and 4 fumbles, giving them 8 turnovers, making them a -4. Making them a -6 in the turnover ratio. They have 24 sacks as a defense. They've only allowed 19, so they've done a pretty solid job of protecting the quarterback. 18 of 25 in the red zone, 37 of 41 for the opponents. Ladarius Owens leads the SWAC with 1,062 yards on the season, 6.9 yards per carry and 5 touchdowns. Ja'Cory Howard averages 6.2 yards per carry. He has 353 yards on the season with 5 touchdowns. Ladarius Owens is definitely putting up Offensive Player of the Year numbers. I would vote for. He would have my vote as Offensive Player of the Year. I think he has a strong case. We'll see how the people look at it, but I think he has a really strong case. I mean, obviously with a 2-17, people are going to look at that, but he's a guy who has had some great games in his last few weeks, and he's been a big reason why this team is even competing in these games. Jace Wilson is 109 of 197, 1,202 yards, 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Jaron Johnson, 36 catches, 374 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Quay Davis, 31 for 326 and 1 touchdown. Trenton Leary has 14 catches for 194 yards and 1 touchdown. The passing attack hasn't been as explosive as you would like, but injuries have derailed that, and this team has really leaned on the run game more than anything. So that's why you see the numbers being what they are. And Jacob Williams is one of the better linebackers in the league. He has 89 tackles, 17.5 tackles for loss to lead the team, and 7.5 sacks to lead the team. So he is all over the field. He's a guy that's definitely a playmaker on defense. Xavier Player has 2 interceptions to lead the defense. They average 37 yards per punt, and they are 8 of 15 on field goals with a long of 41. In the return game, Leary averages 17.5 yards per return with a long of 39. Ladarius Owens averages 24 yards per kick return with a long of 49. Like I said, he's a guy who is a threat all over the field. You always look for him to be a factor in any game that he's playing in. With this game being on a Sunday and Alcorn kind of coming off of a big win, you kind of wonder if they're gonna kind of maybe not start as fast, but I feel like Coach McNair is the kind of coach that keeps his guys locked in, and the Braves are gonna. They know what's at hand for them. They know what's up up in front of them. JSU's coming next week, so I don't know if they look past TSU to get to that, but I think TSU is going to make this another relatively close game for a while. But I think the Braves win this one by a score of 28-17, and that is our game of the week. So I think the Braves win that game and put themselves in a good position to lock up the West Division. You really wanna have that happen before you go into the JSU game because you don't want that riding on that game. But I think the Braves find a way to pull that one out. Just gonna take a quick sneak peek at Week 12 schedule just because, and we'll go over the standings too before we get out of here. Valley is at Alabama A&M. That's on Thursday, November 16th. That's a 6 p.m. kick. Alcorn is at Jackson State on the 18th. That's a 2 p.m. kick. Alabama State's at Prairie View. That's a 2 p.m. kick. Pine Bluff is at Texas Southern. That's a 2 p.m. kick. Bethune-Cookman is playing Florida A&M in Orlando in the Florida Classic. That's a 2:30 kick. So Southern and Grambling are off. Everybody else has a game on Week 12. Looking at the standings real quick before we get up out of here, FAMU has wrapped up the East. They lead it at 7-0, 8-1 overall. Jackson State 5-2, 7-3 overall. Bama State 4-2, 5-3 overall. Alabama A&M 2-4, 4-5 overall. Bethune-Cookman 1-5, 2-7 overall. Valley 1-5, 1-8 overall. In the West, Alcorn leads right now. They're 5-1, 6-3 overall. Southern 4-2, 5-4 overall. Prairie View 4-2, 4-5 overall. Grambling 3-3, 4-5 overall. Texas Southern 1-5, 2-7 overall. And Pine Bluff, the only winless team in conference play, they're 0-6 with a 1-8 overall record. So that's our Week 11 preview. SWAC Smoke coming at you tomorrow live, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. And our Week 12 recap, Week 11 recap comes at you on Sunday. And our HBCU Top 10 and Point Spread Show comes at you on Tuesday. So with that being said, I'm your tour guide around the SWAC signing out, and I'm going to catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.